Is it possible for the incubators to bring people back from the dead? You see, when I was reading Orico Magica, at the end of the story, before Homura resets time, Madoka was killed by a witch. She hadn't contracted yet and was still a perfectly normal human girl at the time who had been killed. Homura reset time because of that. But the interesting thing is, that wasn't her only option. Because at that moment, there was still a perfectly normal human, Hitomi and Sayaka, who would have been more than willing to make a contract with Kyubei to bring their friend back from the dead, while the other probably would have wished to heal Kyosuke. So why didn't Homura stick around and see where that time loop could have gone, having one of them wish Madoka back? On one hand, it's possible that Homura did it because she felt it would be unfair to have anyone else make a wish for Madoka, and that is her burden to bear alone. Another possibility is that maybe Homura was being selfish, and she wanted to be the only hero to Madoka, without having to share that title with anyone else. It could have been that Homura just hadn't thought of it at the time. Another option is that Homura probably knew that if someone else had become a magical girl for Madoka's sake, and Madoka knew about it, she would feel obligated to become a magical girl too. But the main idea is that Homura went back in time because no one would have been able to wish Madoka back from the dead. That is something the incubators can't do. Which I don't think is the case. It has always been extremely vague as to what the limits of the incubators are. Homura could go back in time, and Madoka could become a god. So why would there be a limitation on bringing someone back from the dead? Is it because once the body is dead, the soul is already gone? But don't they take the soul out of the body and put it in soul gems? Madoka's first wish, before Homura interfered, was to bring a cat back from the dead. Or at least, that's what it seems like it was. I looked around, and the most detail I could find was that she wished to save a cat from being hit by a car. It's unknown whether she made the wish for it to be moved out of the way before it was hit, or if it was hit and still barely clinging to life and Madoka wished to save it, or if it was completely dead and Kyubei brought the cat back to life. One of the main reasons people seem to think that Kyubei can't bring people back from the dead is because nobody tried to wish Mami back. I think it was because there was a lot of stuff going on at that time, so no one really thought of it. I think a good chance is that they just might not have thought it was possible. Back when they were fighting Charlotte, the runes in her witch's lair could be translated to say that she wished for one last cheesecake with her mother, and that she could have wished for her mother's illness to be cured, but that surely wasn't possible. So maybe it's just that Kyubei hasn't brought anyone back from the dead because nobody tried to have it done, and everyone just thinks he wouldn't be able to do it. The subject is a bit blurred in regards to a magical girl from the record game named Felicia. She played a prank on her parents that ended tragically with her apartment setting on fire and her parents dying. Her wish to Kyubei was to make sure that didn't happen, that what just happened never happened. And Kyubei granted her wish so that her memories were altered, that her parents were killed by a witch, and all of her neighbors and everyone else thought they just disappeared while the apartment building was restored. However, from what I found online, because I couldn't get a really good translation of it, was that Kyubei specified that the reason her wish turned out like that was because she was in such a state of confusion that that was the way it came across, without it ever being clear whether or not he could have brought her parents back from the dead. In Madoka Magica, the different story, Madoka wishes for Sayaka to come back from the dead. Sayaka had turned into a witch, and Kyoko killed Octavia in order to give the grief seed to Mami and save her life. But Madoka used her wish to save Sayaka, to bring Sayaka back, despite the fact that Kyubei already said that Sayaka Miki had ceased to exist. So that should be the answer, that Kyubei can bring people back from the dead, because he granted Madoka's wish and brought Sayaka back from the dead. Sayaka came back, with her memories being that Madoka saved her from a witch and having no idea about what had happened to her and how she was a witch and killed. But there's something that complicates that, even further than it's already been complicated. In Kazumi Magica, there is a girl named Nico, who during her childhood had a very traumatic incident. She and her friends had found a gun and were playing with it, and she ended up killing her friends. When she made her contract with Kyubey, her wish was for there to be a version of her that didn't have any memory of that trauma, a new version of her that could have a happy, normal life. And Kyubey granted that wish. He brought another girl into being, one who was created by the incubators to live a happy life with no memories of the trauma, who, even though she was created by Kyubey, was still deemed human enough that she could form a contract with him and become a magical girl. So that poses the question, the really horrifying question, is that at the end of the different story, did Madoka really wish back Sayaka? Or did Kyubey just bring a copy of her into being? That the real Sayaka Miki was dead, and Kyubey just brought a copy to grant Madoka's wish. It wasn't actually her, just a copy, just to make Madoka happy. I don't know for sure if Kyubey can bring the dead back or not. If Kyubey can bring people back from the dead, that means Homura ended that timeline not because Madoka was dead and couldn't be brought back, but for entirely different reasons. And those reasons are her own. But if Kyubey can't bring people back, if he really can't, and that's beyond his limitations as an incubator, then that means, at the end of the different story, he made a fake Sayaka.